How's it going, everyone? This is Tom, and I'm excited to bring you a speed comparison and benchmark test between the Nexus 7 II on the left, the iPad mini, the first generation iPad mini in the middle, and then the new iPad Air on the right. We're going to be comparing the Geekbench scores of all three devices, compare the frame rates on the GXBench benchmarking test, do a boot test, and also compare the JavaScript performance in the web browsing using SunSpider. So without further ado, let's jump straight in. So first up is the Geekbench 3 test, and we're running the benchmark currently on the iPad Air. As you can see right here, it's actually very quick on the iPad Air, and that will become more important in a little bit when you look at the iPad mini, because it's quite pronounced the difference between the time it takes to finish this benchmark. So the benchmark takes 32 seconds and scores 1,478, and that's the single core score, and then the multi-core score is 2,684. Now let's check out the Nexus 7 II, the second generation of Nexus 7, and as you'll see once it finishes the benchmark just here, this scores 579 on the single core score, and then 1,815 on the multi-core score, so certainly no slouch. And let's have a look at the iPad mini now, and as you can see near the end of this benchmark, it's taken over 2 minutes. It is currently on 2 minutes and 30 seconds, which is pretty crazy. Obviously, this is an older generation device. I believe it's still running the A5 processor, which is obviously quite a slow chip now, and the single core is 263, with the multi-core score at 498, so it just gets demolished by both the Nexus 7 II and the iPad Air. Next up, we're going to be using GXBench. This is a benchmarking tool cross-platform that allows you to test the frame rates that you're going to get within certain games. Obviously, all of these synthetic benchmarks should be taken with a grain of salt, but they do provide a decent representation. I didn't do this one super in-depth purely because I wanted to give a general overview, not a massive in-depth performance of how each one did on gaming, because I realised it's just not something everybody does on tablets. With that said, the iPad mini scores 180 frames with just 3.2 frames a second. The Nexus 7, 802 frames with 14 frames a second, and then the iPad Air at the end with 1,429 frames and 26 frames a second, and that's all run on a virtual display of 1080p resolution. Now here's a boot test between the three devices. As you can see right here, they were all started at the same time, and with all apps closed out and everything like that. So as you can see, it is all up and running, and I have the timer on my iPhone here, and there we go, just 17 seconds in, the iPad Air is started up, and the, I'm not going to spoil which is going to be next. There you go, on 23 seconds the Nexus 7 II is done, and then on 27 seconds the iPad mini is done. Next up, we're going to be testing some web performance. This is using a JavaScript benchmark called SunSpider. So let's just go ahead and power it up. The lowest time is better on this one, so it's the lowest score. And it's actually quite an entertaining benchmark to watch. It kind of does a countdown and gives you quite an accurate representation of how the web actually work on all of the different devices. So, interestingly enough, the Nexus 7 II was very quick to initiate the benchmark and actually kind of load the page. After that, though, the iPad Air on the right just tore through this benchmark, absolutely destroyed it. Safari is a very quick browser, with the Nexus 7 II coming closely, or sort of closely behind, and then the iPad mini pretty much trailing on the end. But as you can see, the iPad Air is currently finished, then followed by the Nexus 7 II just here, there you go, and also the iPad mini. So as we take a look at the benchmark scores, it took the iPad mini 1,288 milliseconds to complete this benchmark. It took the Nexus 7 II 1,087 milliseconds, so slightly quicker on the N7 II, and then on the iPad Air again just demolishes the competition, and this one finally ends up with a score of 394 milliseconds, so very, very quick and doubling the performance of the Nexus 7 II. There we have it, guys. That pretty much wraps it up for this benchmarking test and speed test. The iPad Air has literally just destroyed the competition. I don't think any of us were expecting anything different. The A7 chip inside this is an absolute monster with 64-bit integration. Hopefully you have enjoyed or found this video helpful. If you have, drop a like. It literally takes a second, and if you've watched the video to the end, I would really appreciate it. Subscribe if you'd like to see more videos just like this one, and I will catch you in the next one.